I'm Mr. B, and today's video is going to be on Mk4 Volkswagen platform starter diagnostics, okay? So this is going to cover the entire starter circuit from the key all the way to the starter, so ignition switch to starter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the classroom and I'm going to lay out the entire wiring diagram. We're going to go over really quick how to read this circuit, how it works, and what we're going to be testing down the line. And then we're going to show you on the car a couple of things that you need to look for this circuit and how to test those things through the circuit. So this video is for if you turn the key and nothing happens, okay? So the car is not turning over, the engine is not turning over, okay? If it is turning over at all, this is probably not the video you need to use to diagnose your car. If it is turning over and shutting off, you may have an immobilizer issue, you may have an engine performance issue, a fuel pump issue, whatever. But this video is going to be just for the electrical side of the starter circuit. So this is going to be assuming you have a good battery. So what we need to do is make sure that you test your battery, you charge your battery's showing at least 12.5 volts or so before we start doing any of this stuff. And that goes with really any electronic diagnostics on these cars. These are very kind of sensitive to battery voltage. So we need to make sure that our battery is charged up. When in doubt, replace the battery, charge up the battery. If you don't have access to a battery tester, take your battery to an auto parts store. They will normally test and charge it for free, and you need to start there. So this is starting with a good foundation of a good battery, and also we need to make sure that the starter is good as well. If you have any problems with your starter, you need to take the starter off and bench test the starter. If you have a Mk4, I actually have a video for that. I'll post it above. So if your starter's good and your battery's good, you have something wrong with the starting circuit, and that's what we're going to go over in this video. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you all the wiring diagram on the board, and then I'm going to break down each component and show you how to test each component for making sure that the component is good and making sure the car is going to start when you turn the key. So let's go to the classroom and look at the wiring diagram. Okay, so I have this wiring diagram up on the projector in my classroom. Let's talk a little bit about it. So first thing we're going to do is look at our battery right here, and our battery goes, of course, it just grounds to the left side of the engine compartment. You need to make sure that the battery terminals are clean, everything is good on the battery there. And you can, of course, do a voltage drop there to make sure there's no extra resistance in that battery cable. Sometimes these cables get a little bit of corrosion in them, and they'll cause the starter to drag or something like that. And then we have a direct line directly to our starter. Now, our starter is underneath the battery tray, so on our $400 Jetta out there, I have the battery and the tray out. So this is one of the areas that we're going to look at first, and I'm going to show you these two connections here to the battery. It's also important to remember that the starter grounds to the engine block, so you need to make sure that the bolts and everything that go to that starter, and in my starter removal video for the Mk4s, I show you how to clean up those starter bolts and make sure you're getting good ground to there. So this is just, again, assuming that the starter is good and the bolts are clean and we're getting good ground to the starter. If you don't know about the starter ground, you can go and do a resistance test between the starter and the engine block and make sure it's reading 0 ohms or near 0 ohms. And that's to make sure that you're getting a good ground. So this is your main line power to the battery. It's a black wire. You know, Germans do things a little different. So black wire is power. And it's going to the 30 spot on the starter. Now this is the wire that powers the starter when the solenoid kicks in. Okay, so the solenoid will ground to the starter body, which grounds to the engine. And the solenoid gets its power up through all this, which we'll go through here in a minute. So we're just making sure that we're getting good power to this. And so this also, the battery is going to power everything that goes inside your 13-volt auxiliary relay panel through this 110 amp fusible link that lives in the fuse box that attaches to the battery. So you have that fuse box that attaches to the battery there. That is a common problem with these cars, that fuse box, so we have to replace that from time to time. It burns out, it goes bad. Now they're pretty simple and easy to change as long as you remember what wire goes where. So we're going to test these fuses. I'm going to put the video up on how to test the fuses here as well above me, and that way if you're not knowing how to test the fuses and you have a test light or a multimeter, you can do that. So we want to make sure that this fuse is good. We have a red wire going all the way to the 13-volt auxiliary relay panel, which is underneath the dash. So underneath the dash, you'll have a lot of relays, and those relays will be represented here. I'm going to show you those relays here in a minute because they have something directly to do with this. So after that red wire goes in here, it just connects directly to the ignition switch. So our ignition switch is in the clamshell that surrounds our steering column, and I'm going to show you on that car, on our $400 Jetta, the ignition switch as well coming up. So wait for that. So we have a red wire that goes down to the PMP relay, and we have a red wire that goes directly from the ignition switch to the coil for the relay to turn that relay on. So we have a power here. So if you can think of this just as a 5-pin relay, you know that we have a couple of powers and a ground. And so this relay right here is in the 13-position relay panel that's underneath the dash. So this is for automatic. I'm going to do the manual here as well to show you all the clutch position switch and everything else as well, but this is for an automatic. Have automatic, this is the way it works. So this is our position relay. I believe this is relay number 11, and I'll show you here in just a second. But this relay directly provides power from the ignition switch, and it goes down through here, and it connects to a red and black wire. Now, this is a red and black wire, but it's black on my car. And when you cut back it has a black cover over it, so it looks black. And this goes directly to the starter. And I'll show you this wire. It's a pretty thick wire. It's probably a 14 or a 16 gauge wire going to the starter. So we have to have this relay click over. So we get power from the ignition switch. The ignition switch is going to turn this relay on. And when it's on the start position, this powers the relay, and our transmission control module and our multifunction switch is going to ground this relay and allow this relay to swing over and apply power to the starter. So if you have your multifunction transmission range switch, which is on top of your transmission, it's actually really near to the battery, you should be getting ground out of this red-yellow wire or ground coming from the transmission control module, and it should go directly to this relay underneath the dash on a red-yellow wire, and it should provide ground. If you don't have ground here, none of this is going to work, okay? So this grounds the relay, which swings this over and applies power through the relay to the starter. Again, if you don't have ground here, you're gonna have a problem, okay? So let me show you where this relay is. I'm going to click on shop key here. This is the cool thing about shop key. If you need to know where something is, boom, it's right here. So here is our 13-fold. This is the top of the 13-fold right here. So this is going to be, you count these over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And it looks like it may have 175 on it. I have seen that change a little bit though, so don't count on it, but it's going to be in the position 11 right here. So if you think you have a bad relay, now if you crank your car up, if you turn to the start, you should be able to put your hand on this and it should click, okay? If it doesn't click, then you are going to need to check your powers and grounds going into it, and it might just be a bad relay. So, you know, if you want to go ahead and change that relay, if it's not clicking, go ahead. But I would definitely test your inputs to the relay before you replace the relay, because some of these relays can be fairly expensive. Okay, now let's go back to the manual transmission. Most of y'all do have manuals, so let's see. So starting circuit for the manual. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a manual car here, but I will go over this, and it's almost the same, guys. So it's almost the same, except we have a clutch pedal position switch right here. So we go through the fuse out of the battery. The red and black wire going to our starter is going to be the same and it goes through our 13 position down to the 30 spot under here, goes through the ignition switch just like the automatic, and the ignition switch is going to power this relay, okay? Now, we do have a clutch pedal position switch. So the clutch pedal position switch is normally open. When we push the clutch in, it will close that switch and it will close the circuit and cause that power to go through here, and it adds power to the starter interlock relay. So, and the ground is just always there. So you should have ground on this starter interlock relay, which is in the 13 auxiliary relay panel, and I'm going to show you the location of that as well if you have a manual transmission. So this relay, again, when you turn the key to the start position, you put your hand on it, you should feel a click, and it should pin 2 and pin, I can't read that. Here, hang on just a second. It's a little blurry. Pin 2 and pin, looks like 8 on the starter interlock relay should be, you should be able to put power through that, okay? So it should show 0 ohms if we ohm out those 2 pins, all right? So let me show you where, now the clutch position switch is going to be on the clutch, and if you want to just test this out, you can take pin 1 and pin 2 of the clutch position switch, put you a paper clip in between the two, and try to start the car. If it starts up now, you need to press in the clutch, okay? Or have it in neutral. If it starts up, then you know you have a bad clutch pedal position switch. Now, unfortunately, I don't have one to test and show you guys, but you should be able to, excuse me, pin out 1 and 2, put them together, and the car should start. So this relay will click, power will go from here to there, and this is going to turn your starter over. So let's see where that, here we go. Okay, I got it pulled up a different way. Our starting locking relay right here, clutch pedal switch. Now you'll only, of course, you'll only have this in a manual transmission, but it'll be pin 3, okay? And your automatic, if you have an automatic transmission, your PMP relay is going to be pin 11 right there. So one relay, it has to click this over. It has to make that work for our car to start. If this relay goes bad, our car is not going to start no matter what we do to it, okay? So let's go out there and look at the car, and I'll show you where all these junctions are and where to test this stuff at. Okay, so here's one of the first places that I start at a no start condition. So this is your starter right here, and this is that wire that came off the wiring diagram. It was the red and black wire. Well, it says red wire, but it has a black cover. And if you cut this wire open, you'll see it has a red sleeve underneath that black sleeve. And this is coming directly off your relay, and it is what's going to be starting your car through the solenoid. So underneath here is a 1-pin connection. This is a 1-pin connection here, and this clicks in there. And so when we have a no start condition, we want to put our multimeter and test voltage here. We should be getting battery voltage when the car is being cranked up and that ignition switch is in the start position. If we are getting a good battery voltage at this pin right here, then we need to check our grounds to our starter, check the power wire going to our starter, which is right here. It comes directly from the battery. But if we have all that, then normally our starter is going to be bad, and we can replace our starter. I have a video of that. I'll put it in the description underneath this video. So that's that right there. So we also have, starting from the battery, if you remember on the wiring diagram, I said we had a fusible link or a fuse box on top of the battery. Now this is that right here, and the one that we're looking for is this one right here. It's 110 amps, and this big red wire here goes directly from here, and it is going to feed the fuse box underneath the dash and the 13-fold auxiliary panel. So this 13-fold is what feeds everything, all your relays, and it's going to, you know, if this is blown right here, you're going to have a lot of other problems, but your car will not start if this is blown right here. You'll probably turn the key on and not a whole lot of anything is going to happen. But this goes underneath the dash through this wiring diagram, through this wiring harness, and goes to the 30 power. So this is your 30 power coming directly from this. And these battery boxes right here, these fuse boxes, burn out all the time. They're fairly inexpensive now, but you see this one's actually starting to melt right here. So it's about time for one of these for this car. About $15 now, not that expensive. And we need to check the resistance of this cable here, which is a different video. But we need to check that. If there's any burning or scorching of this, we go ahead and replace this. But you should be getting 12 volts out of this right here, or battery voltage, excuse me, out of this. And of course, battery voltage going to the starter. Okay, so let's look at the ignition switch now, which is the opposite end of the circuit. Okay, so I have the clamshell that's off the steering column here. And let me back up a little bit and just show you where I'm at in the car. And this is the electrical part of your ignition switch here, and there's a little, see that right there, that little red dot? That needs to chip off, and there's a little tiny flathead screw in there to take this off, and this ignition switch will slide out. So if you think you have a mechanical problem with the ignition switch, this is where we need to replace it. You don't have to take anything off other than what you see here. So this is the connector to our ignition switch, and these big fat red wires, once you disconnect this, the fat red wires, one of those are going to have power, okay, coming directly from the 30 spot on your 13-fold. So that should have power, battery power coming there. The other one is going to be where that power goes. So if we took these two wires and we put them together, then technically we could spin that starter over if the car was in park or neutral. So with the key on, of course. So if you want to push to start, if you want to put a start button in there, those are the two wires you're going to need for that. However, I don't really recommend that. So these wires, a lot of times, as you can see here, these wires have been cut probably for diagnostic purposes. So I'm going to fix this, of course, but a lot of times we'll see these terminals are going to be burnt or corroded or something like that. So if that is bad, you're going to need to go to a junkyard or something and just cut this whole harness off and rewire it accordingly. So these can give a lot of problems. I have seen these burn out because of, shorted or lower resistance in the wires. And so we definitely want to make sure this is good. This can cause a lot of starting problems. And I have seen, especially if your car has remote start or has had remote start or some kind of immobilizer, alarm system or anything like that, we see these wires a lot of times are cut up. We just need to make sure that this is wired up correctly. And so the wiring diagram says you got a red wire coming in and a red and gray wire going out. On my car, both of these are red. So the colors may change, but the big fat wires are going to be your starter solenoid wire right here. So you see they're about the same size. And so our 13-fold is going to be under here, and that's where that relay lives. So we need to make sure that all of our pins on our relay, if we follow that wiring diagram, those pins are getting the proper powers and grounds and passing voltage through to get to the starter solenoid. So if that relay is bad, you can cross it out by taking the two fat wires and jumping them and trying to crank up the car and seeing if it will crank. You just need to make sure that you're in park or neutral. And also you can do the same thing if you have a clutch, a 5-speed or a 6-speed. You can cross that relay out and you can start the car up. You just need to make sure that your car has the clutch pressed in or it's out of gear. So if you're learning anything from this video, give me a like on the video and give me a subscribe. This helps me out a lot, guys. And thank you for watching and thank you for support. So let's take this off right here, and then I'm going to show you the relay panel. Okay, sorry for the shaky video, but there's no way I can get this tripod back in here. So this is the underneath the dash with the knee bolster removed. So you will see, let me see if I can zoom in right there, this relay 175 right here. And that is the relay that we will be looking at. That is basically our park neutral position switch relay. It's got a lot of pins to it. It's got like 8 pins to it. So that gives us our starter authorization. And then if you look, let's see down here, you're going to see, it's not going to focus in there. See, that's where our 30 power comes in from the fuse box on the battery. So that's our 30 power. So you should have continuity between the battery fuse box on that second fuse to this 30 spot right here. And this knee bolster comes off. It's a little bit of a pain. You want to take the plastic pieces off. They should be like T20s that hold those on, Torx 20s. And then we have Torx 25s and a couple other Torx 20s that holds this whole thing on here. And if you have a manual transmission, you're going to have to take this off to look at that clutch pedal switch, which should be, you know, if I had a clutch, it would be right there. And so that's where it would be, and that's where we would check and cross that out and make sure that it's working properly. So let's take this relay in right here. And this is our 175 relay. I don't see any other relays like this in the car, so it's not anything that you can kind of swap out. And it's got, looks like 9 pins on the back. And we will go to the wiring diagram on the board, and I'll show you what you need to cross out to kind of temporarily go through this relay and make sure that your part neutral position switch relay is working properly and your range switch is working properly. Okay, so we're back in the classroom, and I've taken the wiring diagram for our, this is for our automatic, and I have blown this up to where this is just the relay coming out. Okay, now I'll do the manual here as well in just a second. But the automatic one, you have power that is coming off of 30 power right here. So this is your big fat cable coming off 30 power, and it's going into this relay at pin 2. If you flip over this 175 relay, you'll see pin 2 will have power to it, and that should be on all times, power at all times. So with the key off, key out, as long as the battery's plugged up, that should be hot. Okay, and this is going to swing over, it's going to send power out of pin 8, and from pin 8 it goes directly to the starter. Okay, and that's going to, that wire that we have that is underneath the hood is going to go directly into the starter, and that's what's giving us our energized solenoid. So over here, this comes directly from the ignition switch into pin 6, okay? This comes directly from, it says red gray here, but ours was all red, okay? So pin 6 is going to power this coil, okay? Now we have to ground this coil somewhere, so we're going to ground it actually in 2 different places. Pin 7 right here, so we see pin 7 is going to be a brown wire, that's going to be our ground. And then pin 1, it's going to be a red and yellow wire, and with the key, with it in park or neutral, this is what's grounding and making sure our transmission range switch has a red and yellow wire, and that's what sends ground directly to this relay, and that's what's allowing the car to crank. So you have to have, a couple conditions have to happen, okay? We have to have a good fuse going through our 30 power, right? We have to have our ignition switch in the start position right here. You see it when it goes to start. If I had this zoomed back out a little bit, this would power this at pin 6. And then we have to have our ground, which is provided by our body ground right here, and then our switch ground that is provided by our transmission range switch that tells the car if it's in park or neutral. So let's pull up the manual transmission, and I'll show you the clutch switch relay and how it works. Unfortunately, I just don't have that relay, okay? So hang on, if you have a manual transmission, this is for you coming up. Okay, so here's our manual transmission wiring diagram. I got pulled up and I got it zoomed in. This is our ignition switch right here. So when we are in our start, this is our relay down here. I'm just going to do half the relay at the time. So if you take your starter interlock relay, again, that's going to be on part 3 of the relay panel. I don't know the number because I don't have one with me, but that's going to be on number 3 on the 13-fold auxiliary relay panel. So you have pin 2 is going to be your ignition switch, putting power through, and then we have to energize our coil somewhere. So our clutch pedal position is going to add power to this to allow this to energize, okay? So if we cross these out, this is going to add power. Of course, the car can start with the clutch out. That's dangerous. You don't want to do that. So, but if you got a bad clutch switch, you can cross these out just temporarily to check the relay. So this is power. We also have to figure out where we get our ground from. Now that's pretty easy. Let me scroll up. Our ground comes from G202 behind left side of the dash. If you can't find, if this is not grounding somewhere, you can just take this wire and you can ground it out anywhere. It shouldn't be a powered ground at all. However, if you want to put a switch in here and turn this switch on, a kill switch, this is a good spot to do it, okay? Because this is ground controlled, you can put a kill switch in here, but that's probably a different video. So this is going to add our ground, and this is what's going to switch this over and allow that 30 power to come through and go directly to our starter. So pretty easy. This is a little bit easier to deal with than our automatic relay because we have less inputs and outputs, but still, all this can still give the same problems that the automatics can. Okay, everybody, I know that was a lot of information, and I'm sure some of you out there have questions. So if you do have questions, please hit me up in the comments. I try to answer all my questions as best as I can, and if I have to research this, whatever, it may take me some time, but I always try to get back to my viewers and answer their questions. Also, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it taught you something. And if it did, give me a like on the video, and it kind of lets me know that I'm going in the right direction with all my content. And as always, subscribe. Subscribing helps us small YouTubers so much to get our channel out there and our content looked at by a much broader audience. So also, speaking of broader audience, I am on Facebook, I am on Twitter, I am on Instagram, and I'm also on VK. I'm starting to really add more content to these 4 places, and we will be doubling down with some of our advertising and everything on those 2 things to kind of grow our channel. So again, if you have a question, leave it in the comment. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comment. If you're wanting to see a video on something that I haven't done yet, put it in there. I've got plenty of time to make videos, and I'll make some videos especially for you. I'll give shout out to your name on the video itself. So thank you very much for watching. Y'all have a great weekend. Take care, and thank you for watching